I'm finally getting around to a long overdue project, making a wall mount for my bike and skateboard. Though with a bike comes a few more pieces of gear that are nice to keep handy, such as a tire pump, extra tubes, a lock, and of course a helmet. So, in a matter of a few hours, I built a pretty simple wall-mounted holder for all these things. This holder is split into two parts. The upper part holds the bike and skateboard. The lower part holds all the extra things and has a spot to rest the other tire of the bike. I started by holding my bike up on the wall to see how high up it should go. If it's higher up on the wall, it's more out of the way, but can't be too high or else it's too difficult to get. The bottom tire is at a good height for the rest of the gear, and the top tire is a good height to hang the skateboard. My goal was to make this thing pretty compact. This is a few pieces of 3/8 inch pipe that I pieced together to hold up the bike. It's made up of a flange, a 4-inch section, an elbow, a 3-inch section, and another elbow. You could just as easily use a cap instead of another elbow. I'm using a cutoff of a 2x8 for the upper section, since the flange needs to be screwed to something a bit thicker. I mapped it out on the ground to figure out the size of everything. The skateboard will hang from a separate piece attached to the bottom of the 2x8. I wrote measurements on a sketch pad to keep track during this process. The bottom section just had to be large enough to shelf the helmet and hold the gear, with room for a little bit more. I took the 2x8 over to the miter saw to cut. The bottom of the board was cut at an angle, so the piece that held the skateboard would also be at an angle. That'll make more sense in a little bit. Now it's time to make a groove in the wood for the front tire of the bike. Using the pipe for reference, I marked a line down the center of where the bike will sit. Then I marked some lines for the outside of the tire based on my bike tire's width. I ended up using a multitude of different tools to carve the groove in the wood. I used a mini saw, a router, orbital sander, a mini belt sander, and just plain old sandpaper. I kept switching between tools because I couldn't figure out which one worked best. They all had their advantages and disadvantages, though it just took some time and finesse to get it looking just right. This rack was entirely made up of scrap wood. This is a scrap piece of pine plank that I marked up to hold the skateboard. Prongs will stick out and hold it by the trucks, and it'll thin out to blend with the bottom of the 2x8. It's attached solely with wood glue. I pulled a few pieces of leftover 1/2-inch plywood to put together a simple box. The only thing odd about this box is that one end sticks out an extra 8 inches or so. The box is about 10 by 10 inches and about 9 inches deep, just enough so my helmet can sit on the top without falling off. It's glued together and secured with brad nails. I sanded all the sharp edges. It would be highly unlikely that a corner could pop a bike tire, but I'm not willing to take any chances. I vacuumed both pieces really well to get ready for paint. It was raining off and on, so I brought the pieces under an awning to spray. They got a few light coats of deep blue to get full coverage. Once the paint had dried, I installed the pipe, making sure it was centered over the groove. I also pre-drilled holes for mounting on the wall with a countersink bit. I was aiming to put this as high up on the wall as I could, while still making it easy to grab. When I determined my spot, I threw it up on the wall. It worked pretty darn well. Same for the skateboard. Now that I knew where the bottom tire hit the wall, I could mount the bottom piece. I found my spot, marked it with a pencil, then got the bike out of the way. This is only holding the weight of a few pieces of gear, so 2 screws is plenty. The large bike pump has a gauge with a small thing that works perfectly as a hook, so a simple screw was enough for holding it up against the side of the box. And that's it. This thing is all done. It only took a few hours to make, and I put it together while only using scrap wood. The only thing purchased for this was the pipe to hold the bike. Time to pump up the tires and go for a ride, or work on some of my skateboarding tricks. I still can't do a kickflip, but I practice a little bit every day, so maybe by the time quarantine is over, I'll be able to do one. Okay, that's it for now. See ya.